Apple's double-edged sword, the blessing and curse of China's supply chain. In this video, we'll explore how Apple's deep integration with China's supply chain has given them a competitive edge, enabling the production of cutting-edge devices like the iPhone 4S, which sold over 60 million units. However, as tensions between Beijing and Washington escalate, Apple's dependence on China poses a massive risk. Can Apple maintain its innovative edge while navigating the challenges of its reliance on China's manufacturing capabilities? Apple has been facing shipping delays, worker protests, and political pressure to leave China, creating a challenging reality for the company. CEO Tim Cook has been questioned about doing business with the Communist Chinese Party, given their human rights record. China's manufacturing capabilities have been beneficial for large companies, but that strength has now turned into a problematic dependency for Apple. In the 1990s, Apple manufactured most of their products in the United States. Tim Cook, who joined Apple in 1998, was instrumental in improving Apple's supply chain efficiency. As Apple's products got smaller and required more specialized manufacturing, China became an essential part of the company's supply chain strategy. China's ability to mobilize massive amounts of labor made it important for Apple and thousands of other companies. However, manufacturing in China isn't always a good decision for American companies. Inexperienced entrepreneurs have been burned by shoddy Chinese manufacturers who overpromise and underdeliver. Chinese manufacturers have a playbook for tricking American companies into overcommitting. They offer low prices but then cut corners by using cheaper materials and changing product design to save costs, leading to quality fade. This is a significant problem for companies that lack proper quality control measures in place. Overall, Apple's dependency on Chinese manufacturing has put the company in a difficult position, with political pressure, worker protests, and other challenges impacting the brand's reputation and operations. In order to maximize profits while working with smaller businesses, some Chinese manufacturers use a quality fade strategy in which they secretly switch materials, leading to products that degrade in quality over time. However, this strategy doesn't work with Apple, as the iPhone's complexity and Apple's strict quality assurance practices prevent such changes from going unnoticed. Instead, manufacturers have adopted a morality fade strategy, which is more challenging for Apple to detect. Although Apple can test iPhones for materials and specifications, verifying adherence to human rights standards is more difficult. To increase profit margins, manufacturers may reduce labor costs by exploiting workers. 7 Apple suppliers in China have been accused of using forced labor from Shenzhen, participating in state-run programs linked to China's campaign against the Uyghurs, a predominantly Muslim ethnic group in Xinjiang. Apple has made efforts to address negative stories about working conditions in its factories, conducting audits of its suppliers and secondary and tertiary suppliers. However, completely pulling out of China is not an easy solution, given Apple's deep cross-border relationship with the country. Throughout the iPhone era, Apple has embedded top product designers and manufacturing engineers directly into their suppliers' facilities, collaborating closely and investing billions in custom machinery and cutting-edge expertise. Apple's integration with China's supply chain has given them a competitive edge, making their products more intricate and cutting-edge. The iPhone 4S, for example, was assembled by Foxconn and Pegatron and sold over 60 million units. Assembling iPhones has always been complex, and China's manufacturing capabilities grew with Apple's support. Apple's deep integration with China's supply chain allowed them to innovate by customizing nearly every part of their devices. This strategy led to Apple investing over $7 billion in assets in China, with machinery becoming more valuable than all of their buildings and retail stores combined. Their process for vetting suppliers was rigorous, leading to transformative contracts for suppliers. Apple's relationship with China led to immense economic development, especially after the 2008 global financial crisis. However, this dependency on China now poses a massive risk as tensions escalate between Beijing and Washington. Apple's reliance on China has made it difficult for the company to consider other manufacturing options. Currently, it is not feasible for Apple to pull out of China, Despite public gestures like a 2019 photo op with Donald Trump at a Texas manufacturing facility, the reality is that the company's manufacturing strategy remains unchanged. As global complications arise, such as COVID-19 and human rights issues, Apple faces increasing challenges and scrutiny over their reliance on China. The criticism Apple has faced from American politicians on both sides of the political spectrum. Senator Mark Warner accused Apple of catering to the Chinese Communist Party, while Senator Josh Hawley criticized the company for unquestioningly following Beijing's directives. The bipartisan consensus in Washington is that Apple should withdraw from China. But is it possible for the tech giant to do so? And where could it relocate? India seems like a reasonable option, with its democratic system, large population, and increasing demand for iPhones. Furthermore, India's manufacturing sector has been on the rise, accounting for 16% of global smartphone production in 2022. Companies like Samsung have successfully produced millions of phones in India, and the government is committed to improving infrastructure. While Apple has been making iPhones in India since 2017, most of its supply chain remains in China. India's current production capacity is mostly for budget phones, and the country lacks the skilled workforce and infrastructure necessary for manufacturing flagship iPhones. Another potential location is Vietnam, which offers lower labor costs than China. Apple has been working to increase its production in Vietnam, particularly for AirPods. However, the country's smaller workforce and overall population might not be able to meet Apple's manufacturing demands. China's vast pool of factory workers has been a critical factor in its ability to produce iPhones at scale, and Vietnam simply doesn't have the same resources. Decoupling from China would be an enormous challenge for Apple, given its extensive investments and agreements in the country. Rather than seeking an alternative manufacturing hub, Apple seems to be adopting a China Plus One strategy, wherein it adds manufacturing capacity elsewhere without reducing its presence in China. The company may wait for the media attention to subside before continuing its investments in China, but the situation remains fluid. As we've seen, Apple's integration with China's supply chain has been both a blessing and a curse. While it has allowed them to create intricate cutting-edge products, the company now finds itself facing increased scrutiny and challenges due to global complications like COVID-19 and human rights issues. The question remains, can Apple continue to innovate and adapt to these challenges while maintaining its strong ties to China? Only time will tell. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful discussions on the tech industry and beyond.